Hello everybody and welcome to episode 10. Episode 10 already, whoa! That calls for a special game to be reviewed. And this game is really quite something. The original Guild Wars. Now I started playing Guild Wars after having played several other MMOs. So a massive multiplayer online game was nothing new to me. However, Guild Wars had something that made it feel new and fresh. And returned me to that feeling of playing an MMO again for the very first time. Guild Wars was released in 2005 by ArenaNet and was published by NCSoft. And it's set in the world of Tyria. The first game, Guild Wars Prophecies, takes you throughout Kryta and its neighboring countries. Most will recognize these places as zones that you can visit in Guild Wars 2 as well. At the startup of the game, you get to create your own character and pick a class to go with it. There are 6 different classes to choose from, but more will be added in expansion packs. After having made your character, you are dropped into the world and ready to begin your adventure. You start the game off in Ascalon, a human kingdom to the east of the map. From the moment I set foot in this city, I fell in love with the game. Although not nearly as impressive as cities in other games, the designers did a fine job on giving character to the world, and it got me really excited to begin exploring. Here's where I found out that the world itself was a private instance, where only you and your party could travel through. At first I must admit that I wasn't a fan. In every MMO I ever played before, I could just run in and out of a capital city without having to load. And I had gotten used to seeing other people running around in the world. But as time went on, I actually grew to appreciate it. If I wanted to walk around in a world full of other players, I could just play City of Heroes. But when I wanted to immerse myself and just follow the story without a player named Farts for Life running in and killing my mobs, then I'd play Guild Wars. Gameplay was very different from what I've come to expect from an MMO as well. You weren't stuck with a set amount of skills, but instead got to learn hundreds, maybe even thousands of different skills, which you could swap in and out to create your favorite build. The fighting mechanics in the game is where the game lacked a little bit. If you wanted to get from one end of the zone to the other, it often involves you fighting your way through waves of enemies. And I've heard people say that it's like struggling your way through fudge. It's definitely the most time-consuming part of the game, at least in my experience. But it's not all that bad. I, for example, loved how arrows could be blocked by hiding behind rocks, or trying to get out of the way. Remember, this was in 2005 and most MMOs just had a set fire arrow, hit person, do animation code worked into them. But in Guild Wars the game would calculate if the arrow actually hit you once it was already in flight, which I thought was fantastic. But let's take a look at the story. This is hands down one of my favorite parts of the game. Guild Wars took a different approach to storytelling in their game. Instead of handing you a quest with a wall of text from an NPC, the game would feature fully voiced cutscenes, which could take you further along the story. Traditional quests were still available for those interested in doing them, but the main story did a great job at pulling you in and giving you the feeling that you were actually on a long journey trying to save the world. ArenaNet released several standalone expansion packs, which each had their own story to go along with it. You would travel across the world and meet all sorts of new and interesting cultures along the way. Finishing one of these campaigns resulted in you being hailed as a hero, and to this day I have not seen an MMO who did this as well as Guild Wars 1 did. People would be out in the streets cheering your name, and all your party members that you met along the way would be there to cheer you on. Let's from there move on to the graphics. There is a heated argument about this, with some people saying it still looks fine, while others saying it's old and outdated. I'm sort of in the middle. I still think the character models look very nice, but the graphics have aged. I still think it's one of the prettiest MMOs to come out around 2005, but 7 years later it's to be expected that the graphics don't really hold up anymore. But Guild Wars is amongst the top 3 of my favorite MMOs, and I had a lot of fun playing it. Is this game for anyone? No, I don't think so. Missions could be really unforgiving, and getting through a campaign takes up a lot of time. Nevertheless, for those who could get into the mindset, it's a joy to explore and travel the world of Tyria. If you're interested, I would advise you to watch a let's play or a walkthrough of the game, and if it tickles your fancy, purchase it and enjoy the experience. But with that, we've come to the end of this week's Did You Play? Now I'd like to give a big shout out to both SamboNZ and Wooden Potatoes for allowing me to use some of their footage for this week's episode. You can check out their channels over here. I would like to thank all of you very much for watching. And if you have anything to say, leave me a comment in the comment section below. I love to read you guys' comments. And leave me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending if you like the episode or not. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next week for another Did You Play?